I ended up becoming a manager at a very young age. And there's a feeling, when there's a guest, I remember it, and it'll make my heart pound right now. So a server comes up to you and they tell you that there's a problem.
Welcome to the Private Chef podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. Today we have Wendy Tuttle from Tuttle Hospitality Careers. So joining us from sunny California. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Thank you.
So
it's actually not sunny today. Probably one of the only days in Los Angeles that it's not, but thanks for giving us the credit that it should be.
Yeah, I thought it's like written into your law that it should be sunny every day, no?
I know. I'm not mad at it, but it's not. And you know what? It's still kind of, it might break through. I'm close to the beach, so it might break through later in the afternoon.
might still be turned into a regular sunny afternoon. So
there's hope. There's always hope.
There's hope. So one of the things that I would really like to understand is what made you kind of move into the culinary industry in the first place. I know you love what you're currently doing, but where does your heart for the industry come from?
I was a teenager. I was a front of the house person. So I was tempted by that side of the restaurant. I was young. I remember going to a restaurant with my parents, and we sat down to the table and there was money on the table. And I remember my mom saying, "Wendy, don't take that money." And I thought, well, why? And she said it was a tip. And I thought, so we started talking about tips. So my organic reason is I was young and I thought that I had a bubbly enough personality that I thought maybe being a server would be something that would be a fun job to get me through school.
Yeah. And did it turn true?
And it was. Yes, it did. And my first job, it honestly all happened there. I had a general manager, and I've had the pleasure of being able to tell her this in later years. Her name was Kathy Peterson, and she ended up being an incredible mentor, just not only in business, but as a woman. There was nothing she couldn't do. She was running this restaurant back in the day where it was a boys' club, multi-million-dollar restaurant, and she had such a feminine and strong energy about it. I remember her there one day standing in for pastry because they were sick. Just her tastings of the line before shift, her pre-shift. She would be on the floor handling any guest complaint with nothing but graciousness. She was also that person every night that you left, she would make it a point to thank you for the work that you did that day. And I just remember thinking, I want that. I want to be like her. So she is the one that shifted me, and it got me through college, but I do not follow my major. I ended up falling in love with the restaurant business because of her.
I think one of the things that you just mentioned is like being so gracious with the most difficult customers is like a superpower in the service industry.
It is. And I ended up becoming a manager at a very young age. And there's a feeling, when there's a guest, I remember it, and it'll make my heart pound right now. So a server comes up to you and they tell you that there's a problem on table 4 or whatever. And you walk up and they've got you in their sights. And then there's young 20-something me armed with very little tools at that point. And I realized very early on that what my job was to do was listen. They needed to be heard. I didn't need to go in defensive. I didn't need to do anything other than listen and be gracious and have empathy, which it can be hard if you get a couple of those guests, in one shift. But yeah, doing it with graciousness. It's not something you can teach. It's kind of like personality. You either understand it or you don't.
You think so? You think that you cannot adopt this over maybe the span of life or something? Because I feel like it's such a genuine need for humans to feel heard, and the idea that other people either know how to do that or that they couldn't even adopt that it sounds. I just hope that people can learn that over time.
I think you cut out a little bit. I mean, I think it's a certain kind of nurture in your personality that that kind of kicks in situations like that. I know people, and I worked with people that when they were having a problem with a guest, they would just absolutely hand it over to me. They had zero capability of dealing with that in a way that would be harmonious at the end of the day. And also, I guess it also depends on the level of someone's care. How much do they care about that table? How much do they care about that guest's experience? I think I can only speak for me. I cared greatly.
How do you feel about situations where to you it seems that you feel greatly, but the other person might just be, out of touch or generally offensive? And how do you dissolve those situations?
Oh, can you repeat that? It cut out just a little bit.
Yeah. So in a situation where the other person, might just be out of touch or generally more offensive, how do you dissolve those situations if you care so greatly? Or like there seems to be a point where someone might care too much, where it can be overpowered by what the other person might be in offense, for example.
If I'm understanding correctly, let's say we have a guest and there's just no quelling the situation. They're just angry and it's their way or the highway. Yeah. There's always going to be that situation. I mean, obviously you can't fix someone's bad day. So there has to be a lean in on their side too. Meaning if someone is taking the time to bring something up to you because they're not happy about it, obviously they're wanting some kind of resolution. And sometimes you realize, oh wait, no, this person just is looking for a fight today. This is the same person that goes to the grocery store and is yelling at the cashier as well. So, I mean, you have to sometimes, obviously you can't make every single person happy, but I feel like the majority you can. If you go in, and I would say be the duck. With that mentality, if you're the duck, it just rolls off your back. It's not you. It's not. So my ego, no one's ego needs to be a part of that. It's all about that person and them needing to be heard.
Yeah. So kind of shifting it towards
yes, there's those people that you will never make happy.
Yeah, those are out there for sure that never see the sunshine, even in California.
Look at you, bring it back.
What made you move on from something that you loved so much to the recruitment industry, where you're now connecting top talent with brands?
That's a great question.
That are putting together completely new concepts?
So when I worked in restaurants, I worked my way up from an hourly, up to management, up to a general manager, up to a director's level, up to a VP. And at that company, I was overseeing all of the locations, of which we had 3. And I think my passion really started to kind of puzzle piece, put mixing or looking where talent was needed versus restaurant need. So I was kind of making that people connection then. And I think people, they have their little passions within the industry. You could be a server and all of a sudden you realize that you're madly in love with wine. So you start, taking sommelier classes. Mine was getting the team together and making sure that we were all on the same page with one another. Because a restaurant does not run on one person. It can only run if the team is all on the same page. So that kind of became my passion. When I was in operations, if I was down a general manager or if I was down a chef, we used a recruiting company. Split screen, I left that job. I was working at another restaurant, and I remember I was putting an ad on some platform for a hostess because we were looking for a hostess. And this recruitment company that I used to use had an ad up looking for a front of the house kind of specialist. And I loved that company. I loved the girl that had that position. So I wrote in, I said, "What happened to her?" And he said, "Nothing, she's fine. She's getting married. She's having a baby. Everything's great. But are you interested?" And I said, "No, I'm not interested." I was very, very, very happy where I was. He said, "Just come on down and we'll have a talk." And it ended up being a 5-hour talk, but it was a 5-hour interview, of which I ended up having a few more. And kind of where I was in my life at that point, I was able to do what felt like a risky thing. I'd been in restaurants for 17 years at that point already, so it was a very different way. And it was having to rely on a skill set that I thought that I had, but I didn't know what a great fit it was. So there are still times that I miss operations. But never on a Mother's Day brunch or a New Year's Eve or Valentine's Day. Any of those shifts, those ones where you feel like you've gone to war when you're done. But just the camaraderie and that closeness. It's a family, and unless you worked in a restaurant before, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I do miss that. However, I feel like I'm doing the same thing, putting those pieces together, but it's not just for one particular company. I get to do it for a lot of different companies. And my clients, I think why they let me be very intimately involved in the property. I meet with them. I'm in their kitchens. We kind of powwow together. I'll do meetings with them and their staff. Sometimes I'll go and work outside of their property, or I should say in their property with them. They understand that I understand the operation side. So I still feel operationally connected, even though I'm not, working from 4:30 to close, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's also something that uniquely qualifies you to do what you're doing.
I would never, ever be a recruiter for any other industry. I don't care. And I've had people say, why don't you do IT? Or why don't you do, pharmaceuticals? I don't care about it. Like I care about restaurants. And listen, during COVID, there was no recruiting going on. Not for the restaurant world, that we were just struggling to try and stay open. So you have people I've had people coming at me for other careers, recruiting for other industries, I should say. And I just don't have any interest. I'm a restaurant nerd. These are my people. These are, and I feel that I understand them.
Yeah, I think especially in California, you
It cut out again. I'm so sorry.
I said especially California, as well as, me being in New York, that's where the restaurant industry was hit the hardest, also given the regulations around.
I can't even imagine what it would have been like being in New York and what your eyes saw as opposed to what we saw here. We will always be able to say that we lived through that time together, which is really quite remarkable.
Yeah, it's global phenomenon. Everybody's looking back at that 10, 20 years from now. This really happened, and kids will be like, what? This very odd area.
Yep. Yeah, that's intense.
So what would you say kind of puts the top applicants that you speak to apart from maybe people that are less likely to succeed in the job hunt? And I think right now we're in a very interesting market dynamic. Overall, it looks like the economy is tightening. Even white collar shops are getting laid off. We've seen more of that in the news lately, which usually eventually affects the restaurant industry because there's less disposable income. So I think this will also affect our industry in some regard. And, what can people do, or what are the people that you would say usually stand out delivering or doing that you would say is a good thing for people to pick up on?
That question came in pieces. Let me see if I can. You're asking, in a nutshell, is it how can a candidate stand out?
Yeah,
kind of
that's
ahead
pretty much it. Boiled down in 140 characters. Yeah.
Being authentic. How do you? These are the things that touch me. For someone to stand out. Honestly, it's their passion. And that's, passion obviously in their personality, but you can also kind of see passion in a resume. You can see where people have chosen to work. I can look at someone's resume and where someone might say, oh, they took a step back for this job. I can look at it immediately and say, no, it might look like they took a step back, but they took a linear step, if you will, because this opportunity was going to afford them even more opportunity if they were able to get it. So, one, you're looking, what's going to set you ahead, having a solid resume that has some kind of strategy feel to it, not just someone that's been here, a few months or, a year and a year and a year and a year, which is hard because our industry is very transient. And oftentimes that's how people are learning, especially my chefs. They'll go and they'll want to work under the tutelage of a certain chef and a certain style of cooking, and then they want to get to the next one. So you have to kind of delineate who's a job hopper and who's been trying to educate themselves, who's been trying to put more tools in their toolbox. What else? What is really easy, and I don't think enough people do it. If you want a job, I'm Wendy and I want a job, I would have no problem telling that company, I really want to work for you. And I would have my reason why. That will put someone's pen down and they're going to be listening. Oh, okay. You want to work for us and it's authentic. Those things make someone stand out above and beyond for me when I'm interviewing them. And I'll have candidates say, and I'll ask them, why are you interested in Four Seasons, or why are you interested in this? And some of them are the ones that touch me that I want on my team are the ones, like I said, that have their why. I also understand that sometimes the answer is, I just need a job. I understand that someone needs a job and we have a job opening, but who am I going to lean forward or lean into more? That person that wants to work for this company and they understand why they want to.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everybody needs a paycheck, but if you simply work for the paycheck, that's not the passion that a brand is looking for or a restaurant is looking for that really tries to take it to the next level.
And it makes me sad. I wish that people were able to feel like I do about work. I love what I do. Do I love it every single second of the day? Come on. But I absolutely love what I do. And that is my wish for everybody. I want them to love what they do and figure out what success really means to them. Not just, if you're working for a paycheck, that just sounds like such a sad life. I don't know where the joy is in that. But again, I'm lucky that I've been able to create the experiences that I have that have gotten me to where I am.
So do you feel like you consciously move towards what you enjoy so much? Or was this like a process for you? Or was it a sheer coincidence?
Say again?
I said, do you feel like you had a process of kind of uncovering what you love so much, like the joy in the process of working? Or was it a pure coincidence, given what you said? You kind of ended up in the restaurant industry based on the conversation you had with your mom and everything around that. And then from there, you were invited to that 5-hour interview, which also you probably followed your curiosity, but you didn't really know if this is going to unfold the way it did. So I was wondering, how you basically found what you love to do so much.
That's a good question, because what I didn't expect was, this is what I didn't expect. When people are oftentimes, and this might be changing now because we've got new generations that are coming up with different ideas of what work should look like. But when I started recruiting, I didn't realize that when people were looking for a job, they were either looking because they didn't have one or they weren't happy where they were. So you're dealing with people that are questioning their careers, questioning their passions, or desperate because they don't have a job and they have a family that they need to feed. So what I didn't see happening was the lean in that these candidates would have. Sometimes, people didn't want to talk to their families about being scared about what next steps would look like, or if they were feeling insecure about the last situation that they left because they're defining their entire career on a really, let's say, bad situation that happened at their last job. So what I started to facilitate, which I wasn't expecting, was just this, I feel like I'm a coach. I feel like I'm a fairy godmother. I feel like I'm a therapist. I feel like I'm a best friend, or you name it, a sister, an Aunt Wendy. People would come to be held during this process. And that part I didn't know. I didn't know that would happen. And maybe it did just because of the person that I am, again, because I care and I approach things with a sense of, just an organic empathy. So feeling like you're actually helping someone, forget it. That's ridiculous. That's such a great, this is such a good story and this is perfect timing. So this is a candidate that came to me for one specific company, and highly unique, and so just a cool dude. So cool. And we didn't have a spot for him. So I called up one of my other clients, and I said, listen, I don't know what you need. And this is just a paying it forward kind of thing. I said, I don't know if you need this person, but I could see him being a reservationist for you. I'm blown away with his story, just his everything. So long story short, he ends up getting hired by this other company. And he sent me a picture today, and it's him jumping in the air. He said, it's like my first day of school, because today was his first day at work.
Yeah.
So that, and him saying, I could never have gotten this without you, it's his skill set, absolutely, and his uniqueness that got him the job. I was able to connect it. I was able to open that door for him. But that feeling, are you kidding? And not only that, he's going to be someone that is in my circle forever. So I can't, I wasn't expecting that to happen. That was just I'm not even going to say a happy mistake. It was, you know what, maybe I should say that. It was a happy mistake. And that part makes me feel amazing.
Yeah. Especially if you really, you get to connect people and it really works out for them, even more rewarding, right?
Yeah. I had a woman, I placed her as a director of operations with just a beautiful company here. They're actually opening in New York very soon. And she reached out and just months later, and she said, Wendy, I just have to tell you, this is my favorite job I've ever had. I don't know that gives me little goosebumps when I hear that. That makes my day. And not only that, but the fact that she knows that I care enough that message, that she took the time to let me know that. So, yeah. And I will say this, not every placement works out. And sometimes, someone goes in and they have a very bad experience, and that feels, I take that to heart equally. So those are obviously the hard days that we have, or I have in this.
But I think it's really your personality. It's who you are, because I think there is different people out there who don't take it too hard when the candidates might fail, or the other direction. For them, it's just very transactional, and for them, it's like, okay, who's the golden goose? Who can we place here? Where do we get the payday? And I think that really speaks to who you are, because you're a rare bird in the industry, and I think in the recruiting industry, because I would, and I don't want to put them all in one basket, but many, not all, of the people in recruitment don't have that heart that you show, and the care that you have with the clients, as well as the restaurant owners, the properties you work with.
Thank you for seeing that. And a lot of recruiters chase the money, and that's just something that I realized really early. It's not about chasing the money. It's about doing what's right. And for me, ethics and recruiting, it's everything. If I'm chasing the dollar, then there's someone I'm not caring about. Which is actually both. I'm not caring about my client, and I'm not caring about my candidate. But if I'm fostering relationships, then I strangely kind of care 100% on both sides. That's what's going to bring me money. That's what's going to bring me happiness. And I feel like with happiness, that's the success. That's how the money comes. It's so easy. It could be so easy to be a shady recruiter, and I've seen it. And sometimes maybe not even intentionally. By heavily suggesting or bullying or just convincing someone to give it a try, whether it's a client or a candidate. Oh, come on. There's little manipulations that you can do there. You can hold candidates from different properties. I've seen it, and I've made my own choices. I had a company that I was working with this year, made a placement, and unfortunately, person did not pass their heavy background check. So we rescinded the offer. So I didn't make the placement. But they ended up paying me. I sent them the check back. I was like, I don't think that this was for me. And they're like, oops, you're right. And then they paid me again. And I sent that back. And one of their leads, one of their directors said, you know that no one would have sent that check back. I know that there are some people, I know that I would, because there's just little things like that happen. And if I'm chasing the money, then I'm not happy. If I'm in it to make great connections and have people love this industry, that's really hard. I'm happy and the money comes that way. And I'm glad that for whatever reason, you can see that it's authentic.
Yeah. I think it's just for people, it's a harder path to walk because it's less straightforward. It's less visible. The road to success is kind of I think that's truly how it works, and it's in building those genuine relationships where over decades you can't even believe or see where it leads, because you build so much goodwill over decades and it's not been transactional. And, the people that you genuinely connected, they will always make you top of the list in the future too. And I think, what you're building, it can't even be measured in transactional value, because the goodwill is just compounding over decades if you live like that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I just think that it feels it's an honor to be trusted. And it's an honor when when you're their first call. Oh gosh, we need to call Wendy. That feels great. And I'm lucky that I have clients that want that connection as much as I do, because I'm not going to work with someone that doesn't feel it like I do. And that's one of the wonderful things about owning my own company is I say yes to what I want. I say yes to people that I want to be affiliated with. I say yes to people that I believe in, and I don't have to work with people that I don't. So that's a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
Yeah.
And I think,
I'm glad you like that.
That's... No, it was, no, because it's... it's also what makes it so rewarding to stand on your own 2 feet, and stand in your own right, have your own business, and have that freedom to make those decisions, and be like, yeah, those are kind of our guidelines or our ethics, and we live by those, and here are our boundaries, and, we work with the people we appreciate and that appreciate us.
That feels really good. It feels really good. And, we're getting barraged with all of this technological algorithm kind of technology on this is going to be the best way for you to find your people. And you just, go to this site and we have keyword searches, and every once in a while I'll get someone that emails me. I had this gentleman that keeps emailing me his technology, and part of me thinks, well, they just want to replace me with a robot. And then having this conversation, is such a perfect reminder that you can't replace this. You can't replace this. And just placing an ad when you are desperate to find somebody, they want to be heard. They want to be heard. They want to be held. They want to be understood. They want to feel like they're being taken care of, and working on, placing an ad doesn't make you feel that way. You're just sitting, in front of your keyboard waiting for resumes to come in. That was
How
a weird
do you
rant, but it
handle the
made sense to
volume
me.
of applications? It
How
made
do I
sense to
handle
me
it?
too.
Sometimes
The volume
poorly.
of applicants. Yeah.
Well, it's changed dramatically in the last 2 years, sadly. And handling the volume, you just do. You're a chef. What do you do when you're busy in the kitchen? You get her done. So I'm not.
Just get it done.
You do. You understand. It's
Yeah.
not pleasant, and it's got that feeling. But there's ones. There's obviously resumes that aren't going to make any sense. So those are easily kind of weeded out.
Yeah.
You just get it done.
But you don't use any
So those are
software to
long days.
pre-select, right?
Say again. Do I
You
use
don't use
software
any
to
software
pre-select?
to pre-select. Yeah.
Not really. I mean, I've got my own employee tracking system, but that is something that's like my own data that I upload. My
Yeah.
clients, my candidates go in there, so I can search that. But no, and look,
Yeah.
I will place ads on Indeed, and Indeed will have an algorithm where you can do certain kind of, have them look for keywords. You can lean into their technology if you want. And for some people, I think that helps. I don't do that. I put an authentic ad out there. I will always say what the salary range is. I don't understand why.
Yeah, I've
anybody,
noticed that with you, even on the videos that you share, there's always immediately, you disclose the salary, which I think makes a lot of sense. But the industry seems to be split about that.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. You don't want to waste anybody's time. That's why you're hiring a recruiter. But even if you weren't hiring a recruiter and you're just placing an ad, your time is still that valuable. I understand maybe, if it's not a blind ad, maybe you don't want everybody in the industry to know what it is that you're offering, but we're all pretty close. I absolutely think that every ad, it should be mandatory that the salary is disclosed. It just makes no sense to me because there's certain things that motivate, and if money is someone's motivating factor, or if it's title, you put the title in there. So I don't know. I do feel strongly about that. That's not because, and you also don't want, it's never a bait and switch.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Like if you would offer me kind of the perfect job, I don't know, and I have my own gardener and he grows my own stuff, and and they give it right to me into the kitchen and all of that, but it's at half the salary, I would have a really, really hard time considering that, because I also have a family.
Totally. So again, I find it to be much more efficient. And man, I got to tell you, so posting the way that I do, I don't know if it would be my strategy today. But since it's kind of become its own brand, or people know what to expect, and it's usually my talking face, sharing about an opportunity, I think it's probably going to stick that way. But man, can people be mean. So mean. They'll be mean about the salaries, and then they'll start fighting in the comment sections about salaries. And the best part is most of them don't even live in the area. So it's either about they'll make fun of the salary, or they'll make fun of my face. So, and then every once in a while, someone will find me and say, hey, I saw one of your ads and it spoke to me, and it will be a connection that I never, ever would have made. So without this crazy face and these huge glasses being out there, it's still reaching people that I would never have expected it to reach. But yeah, people can be really mean.
I mean, that's how I found you.
You weren't mean. And you were really nice.
Yeah, but I just mean that
you're getting a share. That's true. You're right.
Yeah,
that's exactly how you found me, which is awesome.
It works. It works for you, you know.
Yeah, and remember,
and
I have to
unique.
take my own advice. I have to be the duck. I can't. It can't be about ego. So if someone just wants to, be mean, they're going to be mean to everybody else the rest of their day. So it's not. It is what it is.
Yeah, but you know what they say about the man or the woman in the arena, right? Like you just can't care about what spectators say. Oh,
you're right. And it takes a minute though. That's been something that I didn't expect. But then I just kind of got to a point. I was like, well, I guess once you have haters, that means that you've reached a certain level of success. In my own mind, that makes sense. If someone cares enough to comment on it, good for me.
That's good. I mean, it depends. And there's people who have different strategies around that. Like, there's people like Tim Ferriss who doesn't want to deal with his comments whatsoever. He says if he publishes something and he thinks it's controversial or something, he doesn't go online for a week to let it pass, you know? And then there's other people like Gary Vee who read all the comments on everything and really think that gives them the edge on what's going on. There's like, I think it really depends on, how we are with ourselves and what works for us. Like, and as long as people comment, there's traction, I don't know. It's all happening.
You know what? You kind of bring up a good point, because every once in a while, if this, and it doesn't happen all the time, but like I just posted something the other day, and someone was posting that they didn't like the salary, and sometimes if it gets too much, I'll just turn off the comments, because in my mind, I'm thinking I don't want the message to get lost. I share, I think, a good portion of what someone can expect in this job for as long as I can to capture someone's interest, right? I mean, the ads aren't super long, but it's enough to intrigue someone truthfully. So I don't want that to get lost, because if someone's really interested in the job and then they start looking at these hater comments, then that message is lost. So sometimes I'll turn the comment section off, because why? It doesn't need a comment. If you're interested, you know how to get in touch with me. Poof, perfect. Just send me your resume and off we go. Skipping down the lane. But you bring up a good point. Even if they're very negative comments, do you just keep them all coming because it's actually bringing traction? You give me something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a lot of engagement or something, it's still traction and it still brings it to more people.
Yeah, you're making me have to think about this one, aren't you? I might change my mind about that. I might just leave those comments on all the time. I posted one today, and honestly, the comments I left off. I didn't want comments.
Yeah, you can see, I don't know how you are able to track the feedback on it and the response. Like if people actually tell you, hey, I'm reaching out based on the video I saw online or the short. So I'm not sure. But I think there's something to be said about having the engagement kind of driving the reach.
That's absolutely a perspective that I didn't think about, and I'm going to have to rethink that one. Thanks. But like, bring it on, bring it on.
You got to use the haters as rocket fuel. You know, you're like, please come. This time is my next post. Please be there and amplify my reach.
You know what? I'll reach out to them and I'll give them a countdown. So I'm going to be posting another ad tomorrow at 3. If you could come with your hate and your comments, that would be fantastic. Maybe you're onto something here. I think you're onto something. You know, you've absolutely changed my perspective. I'm dead serious. Thank you. Bring on the hate. We got it.
So, yeah. So once somebody gets to this stage where they actually see it because of all the haters that amplified it, what would you say stands out in a resume? If somebody sends you an email, do you want it to be short and concise and like, hey, Wendy, this is who I am and this is my resume? What stands out to you, and how can they best kind of deliver themselves in a way that catches your attention and the attention of whoever they might work for?
Great question. And I might actually work backwards in a different way with that. I'll tell you what distracts me. Nope, I like concise. I like concise. I do not like a template-y cover letter. Forget that. Unless your why you're applying is palpable, I don't need your cover letter. I just want to see a very tidy resume. Old school layout, perfect. What I don't like are things, resumes that they've got a portion of information on one margin. They've got, another kind of portion of information on another margin, and it's just kind of block it. I don't know where to look. I don't, and I feel that those, yes, the ones that have a lot of design are distracting, and they're distracting because in my mind, they're hiding substance. If I have an awesome resume, guess what I don't need? Any pomp and circumstance. All you need is to know where I worked and what my accomplishments were. You don't need my picture. I don't need to have like any crazy font. So ones that are over the top stylistically, I find often have the least amount of substance. So concise, speaks to my heart. Obviously I love long tenures, and I'm not, which is hard in our industry, first and foremost. But I've had some of my clients will be like, they worked at that place too long. How is that a problem? Like, so they're loyal. That's great. So tenure stands out to me.
What was the reasoning from the client for someone being somewhere too long? Like, what is their thought behind that instead? That
is the only way they know how to do things. Especially if it was a corporate restaurant, they might think, well, they haven't really had to think on their own. It's a restaurant where you could open up a manual and pretty much know what to do in any given circumstance. So how are you going to be if we're not as corporate? Can you think on your own?
Yeah.
So
how about photos or like different aspects to show your work? Do you appreciate photos from chefs in their resume or things that they actually put together themselves? Culinary images?
Yes. But if they're going to do it, they need to be chef's kiss perfect. These pictures need to be professionally done. If your food was featured in a magazine, bam, put that in there, or at least, the link. But if the pictures are exquisite, yes, there is nothing worse than a picture of just a sad, I don't know, just a sad hamburger. Someone sent me a picture the other day and I was like, oh, bless his heart. The lighting was bad. The plate was awful. He's like, what are they? No. And then, I give very gentle feedback, and some people want it and some people don't, and that's fine. And their resume is their resume. But if that candidate was going to be mine, I would say, so let's not use the pictures. Or if you're emphatic about it, you need to invest in getting some really great ones taken. I have great food photographer friends that could do that. So, but yeah. And it doesn't need to be a million. Every once in a while, my chefs come in with like Powerhouse, and it's pages and pages and pages and pages of pictures, and it can be a little much. You want to leave something to the actual interview,
Yeah. So, given that we're now at the interview stage, what do you think are red flags in interviews for both parties?
Red flag in an interview. It's a great question. Red flags for me. I won't speak necessarily for my clients, but I think that they're hiring me as their brand ambassador, so I basically am. Red flags for me. If someone is consistently left, because we'll go down their entire history. And if they've left every position because, well, that company was awful, or that person, or this was someone where I see no accountability in any reasons why they left, that's a red flag to me. I can just stop probably there if I'm not seeing any accountability. And if you've been in this business long enough, you're going to have a really juicy story, at least one. And when I say juicy story, there's going to be a job that you had that was toxic, or maybe you didn't leave on the best terms, but that certainly does not define your entire body of work. So I'm going to understand that. And I think pretty much anybody in our industry is going to understand one juicy, whoa, I worked for this place and let me tell you this story. It's how you manage it. It's how truthful you are about the situation, and owning your piece of how that became a not great situation, or maybe like a little blemish on your resume. How do you communicate it? People understand the truth. They might be disappointed, but they understand it. So accountability on the candidate side. On an ownership side, if I'm a candidate, if a client keeps running through management, that's a red flag. I had a client that I worked with for a number of years, and upper management changed. And for one of their stores, and I loved this brand. They, 3 different managers and back of house as well. They all left, well, maybe within 6 weeks. None of them, and they were my people, none of them worked at the same time. And they all left for the very same reason. So clients need to be able to speak to their culture. And sometimes it's toxic because maybe you had a bad egg in there, and they really did a damage on company or team morale. That's okay. Be honest with me about it, because we can find someone that loves turning that around. Loves that challenge. So I need a red flag for me are companies that are constantly looking to fill the same position. The only caveat in that is because it's so hard to find talent right now, I would give anyone grace on that because it's pretty nutty still out there right now. But in the past, people that are just, they can't seem to keep anybody. That's a red flag. Why?
Yeah. Do you see that change at all in the near future, that, that the industry, that it will become easier again to fill positions? Like where would the relief come from?
I don't know. I do think it's going to balance out, but I think that it's going to take the restaurants really taking a look at themselves and making some big changes. I know that you know what it's like working in the industry, and it's oftentimes unforgiving hours, and you don't get to see your family or your friends on every special occasion of life. You don't get to see your kids. You don't get to see their games. Something during COVID woke up a lot of people. Were forced to stay at home, forced to be with family. And guess what? Some people actually liked their family, and they were like, why is this okay? Why am I allowing myself to be worked to the bone? Because that's the way we've always done it. So, and it's going to be costly. It's pay has gotten better. It needs to still continue to get better. And it's going to be passed down to the consumer. But I think that we need to, we are an industry that is run on passion, 1,000,000%. We also need to respect people's time away from the restaurant. I mean, if you're happy on the outside, guess what? You get to bring all of that joy to you or with you into work. So, people laugh about, work-life balance, but that's something that we still need to work on. And again, it's going to be looking at maybe hours of operations are going to have to change, sizes of staff are going to have to change, salaries are going to change, and all of that, is going to affect the bottom line. And in effect, it's going to hit the consumer. But we've been trying to, I think, make things so valuable, or give them a sense of value. You're coming in and you're getting all this food for this value, and it's at the stake of, you're killing your staff. So it's going to get passed down. But I do think that as restaurants continue to morph because of what we've just experienced, that culture is going to continue to change, and it's going to become more appealing again.
Yeah. Well, let's see how that's going to play out.
I'm lighting a candle off in the background as I say this, so just and a prayer. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, going to, yeah. Well, you started the episode with hope, and I guess I will end it on the note of hope. Thank you so much for your time, Wendy. And
My
where
pleasure.
can people connect with you?
My website, Tuttle Hospitality Careers. I'm also on Instagram, Tuttle_hospitality_careers_. And then LinkedIn. I don't even do it as my business. I just do it as me. I mean, I am my business. So just Wendy Tuttle on LinkedIn.
You're the brand. And we'll also make sure to add all of those to the show notes. Yeah, thanks again. This was a very interesting conversation. Thanks for your time.
It's my pleasure. I really appreciate you reaching out. It's been lovely. Thanks for asking some great questions and actually having me think about things that I didn't even think about before. So thank you for that.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.